Hey everybody, welcome back to Top Ends with Twins. It has been a little bit, and Luke and I are so happy to be back talking about FPL. First of all, what really matters, Luke? How are you doing today?
I'm good. I am super excited.
He's
You can
high energy
testify to
right now.
this. We were just in our kitchen, cooking up some really nice dinner, and I was just bouncing around the whole entire time, annoying the absolute living shit out of Paul. But I can't contain my excitement. FPL is back. Today is the announcement of an opening of the FPL game for the 2024 season, and I could not be more excited.
This is essentially if you give a kid Christmas times 1,000, and it's great to see, but it's also like I'm like, wow,
So
this is
another
so much energy.
another way to kind of epitomize how I can get really excited about stuff I kind of become obsessed with. We live
No,
here in Florida, and one of the things that we like to do with our free time is we'll go shark tooth hunting at the local beaches nearby. There's a really good one about an hour away from where we live.
yet we
But
will not
any
disclose the location.
Yes, because we have to find all the teeth.
Exactly.
But anytime before we go to that, if it's been a while, I always can't sleep the night before. So I just feel like a little kid, 6, 7 year old waiting to wake up for Christmas morning. And apparently I just haven't lost that. Maybe it's just transferred to what I'm more excited about now here at this point in my life. And it's FPL and it's shark teeth. So, yeah,
Fishing soon? Question mark.
got to catch a fish first.
You will. You totally will. I fully believe in you, Luke. You'll get it.
I do too, but it's going to take
You'll
some
catch
time.
them all. You will. You will.
Yeah,
All
a
right.
little
Well, Luke.
Pokemon reference.
You just kind of want to dive into some FPL discussion.
Yeah. Well, I think the very first thing that we need to talk about here is that the Premier League season is about a month out from now. There's a lot of preseason matches that are going to come up. A lot of teams are going either there's managerial changes, there's new signings, there are teams like Crystal Palace who've lost really key creative players. So we're going to need to be watching how those teams are setting up during the preseason. That's one note. Secondly,
Mm-hmm.
there are some pretty important changes to how FPL is played in general that are very impactful. And I guess we can kind of run through those very quickly, just so everyone knows in case you have not heard about this yet. Do you want to go through Paul? Do you want to explain what's going on with the new transfer system? And then after that, I can explain this mystery chip that's on the horizon.
Yeah. So they've changed it now where you're going to be able to bank 5 free transfers instead of 2, which is really big because now it's going to give you the ability to essentially have a mini wild card if you play your cards right, and essentially not take points hits throughout the seasons, which is really good because I mean I think both of us can attest to this that last year we were I really think both of us were really good about not taking points hits up until like maybe Christmas. And then after Christmas, I know for me, especially me personally, kind of went downhill and I just went point hit crazy, which who knows? Maybe if I had played my whole season without taking points hits, maybe I would have done a lot better.
And here's the thing now with this new tweaking to how we can play the game, having 5 free transfers potentially, if you play your cards right, that could allow you to not take a single points hit the entire season. Think about this, right? You could do this to where you get to the point in game week 6 where you have 5 free transfers. Going into game week 6, you could make 4 free transfers without taking a points hit, and then going into game week 7, you have 2 transfers.
Yeah.
That is honestly game changing because it gives you the capability to, as long as you're patient and you give yourself time to get to that 5 transfer point, you can make wholesale changes to your team within 1 week without having to wild card and also without having to take a points hit. So, for one big takeaway here, I think that you're kind of alluding to is points hits are going to be really detrimental to your overall rank if you do start taking hits.
Mm-hmm. No,
So,
for sure.
just something to keep in mind there. We really, personally, just how I want to play this season after hearing this is I want to be very careful about when I'm using my transfers. I want to plan out how I'm going to use those transfers. but also get to 5 or as many transfers as possible so I can have more flexibility with my choices as things change. And we know in FPL they change very, very quickly.
Yeah. Sometimes your season you're sitting about maybe like around like maybe like 80, 75K, and then you end up at 1.5 million after 4 weeks. So just
Yeah,
keep that on the horizon, everybody.
And there's
you never know
another
what's going to happen.
There's another wrinkle within this as well. Is in the past, if you use your free hit or wild card, if you were on 2 free transfers, you would automatically go down to 1 the next week. You would lose that free transfer. But now, with these changes they're making, they're also altering the setup to where, say, you get to 4 free transfers, you wild card that week. The week you come back after that wild card, you still have 4 free transfers, which is really nice. And it's the same for the free hit as well. So say we're going into game week 21, you free hit, but before that you had 5 free transfers. You come out of game week 21 going into 22 with 5 free transfers again, which I think is a really strategic way to play the game, and it allows you to, plan exactly how you're going to use those transfers very strategically.
Yeah, I think it's going to involve a lot more nuance to the game also. Because, I mean, some people are going to probably maybe not ever get to 5 free transfers, and some people are going to base their whole season around it. So
Yeah.
adds a lot more variability to the game, really.
Yeah, there's a lot more variance in how people are going to play the game. And we'll get into this a little bit after we talk about the new changes, but the pricing has been spot on, I think, because
so?
It is really, really difficult to build that ideal team where last season we were able to have Cole Palmer, Saka, Son, Salah, Holland all in the same teams, and Foden too. And you could even have Watkins in the mix and Isak. But here's the thing now, with the premium attached to all of those players, you have to sacrifice somewhere. But we'll get into this. We'll come back to it. We'll come back to the pricing.
I have thoughts. Like
so the next addition that they've made is there's going to be a new mystery chip. We don't know what the chip is. That'll be revealed in December of this season. And then the chip will be available to be played apparently in January. So something to keep an eye on.
Do you have any wild speculation?
I don't know. There's a lot of people have been enjoying in the Euro fantasy. There's a chip called Limitless where you have an unlimited budget and you can build any team you want for that 1 week. So that is interesting, and maybe it's something they'll look at doing. I don't know. Maybe they'll change how they're valuing points for that chip or something like that. That would be interesting if they change how you score points for 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
It would be interesting. On top of that, they've changed the user interface for whenever you're picking your teams. And what they did is they tried out a new interface for FPL Challenge when they introduced that. That is now the entire interface for whenever we're loading our FPL teams. So a little bit of a change there, and I don't think anyone really loves that.
I think it's grown on me a little bit, though.
Yeah.
The more, I was playing around with teams today, and, I looked on my laptop just now, and I think it does look pretty clean on the laptop screen.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit more spread out on that.
It is. I don't know. There's something. It feels a little better on the laptop, but I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just different. People will adapt to it. It's fine.
Yeah,
in my opinion. I don't know.
And then the final change that was announced in this reveal on Tuesday, the day before they released the game, there's changes to point scoring. So for one, a goalkeeper goal has been changed from 6 points to 10 points, which is pretty crazy. That's a hefty amount of points for any goal scored by a goalkeeper. And then there were changes made to the underlying BPS system to where saving a penalty will be reduced from 15 bonus points to 9. And this is in the bonus points system. So that's 15 points towards their overall bonus. This is not saying that they're going to be getting 15 bonus, right? This is just what ultimately adds up to the 3, 2, and 1 bonus points that are allocated after the match. On top of that, goalkeepers and defenders for conceding a goal, will receive -4 BPS. A goal line clearance will be worth 3 BPS, which really doesn't do that much at the end of the day. A foul won will be worth 1 BPS, and a shot on target will be worth 2 BPS. So ultimately what these do is it feels like it's really going to favor attackers who are drawing a lot of fouls, and for attackers who are taking a lot of shots.
And so, like, do you know who that would impact the most last year? Like,
As in,
let's
who
say,
would benefit the most from those added points?
hmm
So I would say it's going to be someone like Saka, Foden. Um, I think IU was really high on that because he draws a lot of fouls.
he is.
Trying to think of other speedy players who draw a lot of
So
fouls.
Anthony Gordon's up there.
Yeah.
Bruno Fernandez actually is
Oh,
too.
I remember Bruno Guimaraes was number
hmm
one on that list, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, Calvert Lewin's also up there too.
Yeah. So just players who are drawing a lot of fouls and taking shots, they are
hmm
going to be rewarded. But on the inverse side of that, defenders and goalkeepers will be punished for the goals that they are conceding. So the days of Trippier or Trent getting 3 bonus points with their teams conceding 2 to 3 goals, those are pretty far gone now.
Which is crazy because I don't know. I just feel like last year you could always count on those, like even like say Ben White or these different defenders that we really valued that were wing backs that were attacking because they kind of balanced out even if there wasn't a clean sheet. And last year it was so hard to hunt clean sheets.
It's going to
Like
be
and
really
it's
difficult.
and it's they're just not going to this year. If I doubt the goals will revert to more of a median. I feel like there's probably going to be more goals scored this year. So to me, I'm like, it's just defenders. It maybe is making the game pivot to putting a lot less money at the back and distributing it everywhere else.
I think so too. I think
Yeah.
we'll see a lot of teams that have one, maybe two premium-ish defenders. What? So that's a good question, Paul. What do you, after seeing some of the pricing, what price tag do you see as a premium? Because they did decrease the price of Trent. Trippier is still somewhat expensive.
So let me see.
But do you have any kind of thoughts upon what you think is a premium defender?
Let me see. Let me have a full list of defenders right here in front of me. Give me 1 second. So, I mean, to me, really, at the end of the day, I think anything above, I would probably say. I mean, so we have Trent at 7, Ben White at 6.5. Those are going to be the two main ones, and then there's a lot of defenders at 6.0. I mean, I really would think anything 5.5 and
I think so
below
too. I
is
think
probably
that's my
like
line.
median.
Ooh,
Anything above,
I think 5.5 is the line for premium.
like you think it's D line or like
Yeah, I think 5.5 and above is kind of what I would consider a premium for this season because the funds are going to be a lot harder to come by. So even someone like Pedro Porro, who's a very attacking fullback under Ainge's system, he's going to be really hard to get into a lot of teams. And I think he's going to be someone who's going to be much lower owned than we would have expected going into the season. So it's really interesting to look and see how people are building their teams right now. As I was saying, I could easily see people just using one premium, probably an Arsenal defender, and maybe Vardiol, and outside of that, just completely neglecting their back line outside of that, and
Yeah.
going 4.5 or below for the rest of their starters.
which kind of does suck because I mean I will tell you Ben White last year is one of my favorite transfers. I had him on my team for a good portion of the year, and he delivered a lot of the time.
He did.
Even though I did kind of get screwed with our our 2-time perennial champion Jerry having double Arsenal.
Yeah,
I always kind of canceled out my Ben White unless Ben White had a really good day.
I think double Arsenal defense are going to be much harder to come by this season
Yeah,
because
I
they're
mean,
much more expensive. And on top of that, as I was saying, the funds are much harder to find, just point blank. So,
Yeah, but I mean, we'll kind of touch on this later in the podcast, but I think we'll see as the year kind of unfolds, probably maybe like 4 or 5 weeks into the season, the lower tier options that are going to be viable for the whole season will probably make themselves maybe somewhat apparent. There's going to be lower tier, just like last year. It's going to be the same thing. There's going to be players like probably not Cole Palmer's level, but we'll have defenders, midfielders, attackers that are viable options.
yeah, we will.
They may not
And
be apparent right now.
There are some defenders that are very cheap, but also seem pretty locked into the starting 11s. While they are predominantly, so the 4 million defenders, they're they are majority going to be from newly promoted sides. You've got someone like Vout Face with Leicester, Hardwood Bellick, Taylor Hardwood Bellis. He was from City, moved over to Southampton, and it'll be really interesting to kind of see how he does there. But a lot of people are expecting him to be starting because of that transfer, and they did spend a little bit on that transfer getting him over there. So something to keep an eye on. There's lots of good options for cheap defenders to help lower our price points across the board. But that does get into the point of, if we're bringing defenders off the bench, we probably don't want to be bringing in a Leicester defender or more particular Southampton, who might have a rough go of it in the Prem. We'll see.
Ipswich is probably going to be tough too.
Ipswich, I'm pretty optimistic about. I think they have a good shot of staying up this season because they can play lots of different styles of football, and that gives them a flexibility to where they have a better shot of staying up, being able to play different types of football. So
yeah, I think what we've just seen over the last couple of years is it's so tough to actually make that jump and stay true to your identity of what got you to the Premier League. I think it's always just a tough stretch, but I mean, I'm always a fan of teams that just kind of like go for it,
Me too.
But there is practicality is a big part of it,
and I think even bigger part, as we kind of saw with Luton last season, if teams can stay healthy, especially these newly promoted sides, that's going to be most important to them because they don't have the depth that a top 6 team does. So if they can stay healthy, play a good brand of football where they're consistently getting points week in, week out, then they have a shot. But I think being healthy is the key.
Yeah, I really just think that with like the general level of the Premier League rising year in year out, that it's just so hard for these teams that don't have the budget. They don't have the ability to bring in the depth that like even now the top like probably 10 teams in the Premier League do. And it's just like these clubs are just amassing wealth, which I'm not like taking a stance against that stuff. I'm just saying that like it's really hard for these teams that come up to like even stay in the Premier League for like 2 years in a row,
But it is a problem at the end of the day because you want to see disparity and you want to see different teams winning and being successful. If we look back to Leicester's run whenever they won the Premier League, I don't know if we'll ever see that again.
We don't live in that economy anymore.
It's
not possible.
It's crazy. And Leicester did strike gold within that same season where they had a ton of incredible high-level players.
Their scouting was
Insane. So maybe one day another club strikes gold and gets a really good group of young players that before they turn into, the ultimate form of what they are. But that's going to be really tough to do now with how much money they're competing against and the depths of the squads they're playing against.
Yeah, it's really tough. But
so maybe what we should do here, I think, is let's take a little break. And what we'll do when we come back is talk about some drafts that we put together.
Okay.
And some different team setups that could be favorable and why we prefer some over others. So
let's do that.
We'll be right back. Thanks, everyone. And welcome back to Top Bins with Twins. We're going to do a quick rapid fire question section for Paul here. Paul, prepare yourself. Are you ready for some quick questions?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm going to name a player. You tell me how many goals they're going to score this season.
This is going to be so easy.
And I'm going to keep this in my notes and we'll check back in with this at the very end of the season to see how close or how far away you were from this.
Okay.
Erling Haaland.
32.
32, all right. Cole Palmer.
17.
17, all right. Below the season last year. Saka.
23.
23. Wow, that's a pretty big increase. I respect it, though.
It is.
And Isak?
19.
That's a weird gap there. You said 8 at first.
No, I was going to say 18. That's a 19.
Okay, all right. Cool. And finally, Kai Havertz.
14.
14, okay. Well, we will revisit that one day. But
if I get that right, I'm going to run around. I don't know. I'm going to be very excited if I get that right.
You're going to... So this was like last season whenever I free hit. And Mateta bagged a hat trick in his first match of the double. And then I did proceed to run around the house. Yeah, that was by far the best
Absolutely
FPL
insane.
week, but we don't
Like,
need to revisit that.
let's set a general rule for this podcast from here on the rest of the year. Let's try not to talk about last year.
I'll try not to, but that
Just
week
kidding.
was the best week I've had in FPL ever, and
Yeah, that was
might
insane.
ever be the best week I
That
ever
was,
had.
I was kidding about that. I think there's lots of stuff to be learned from last year. I think we both took away a lot of good things, a lot of bad things, a lot of learning points at the end of the day that are very relevant to this year. So we will bring up last year.
Yes, we will. And most importantly, I think that one of the things that we need to carry over into the season with the new changes we talked about earlier in the podcast is we really need to plan out how we're going to use our teams. That's going to be very important. So, side note there, but what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about some drafts that we put together after.
Luke, real quick, I'm going to ask you a question. That you asked me.
Ooh, all right.
How many goals does Salah score this year?
Oh, that's so tough because it's a new system, but I'm going to say.
Note it down on your phone.
I'm going to say 20. Yeah, because
20.
he should be on pins. So
I think 20 is a good. I could see 20.
So that's what I'm going to go with. I really, really am very interested to watch Liverpool play in the preseason. I want to see how Slot's going to have them line up. Who's going to be starting? Will it be Jota up top? Will it be Nunez? Is Gakpo going to play on the left? Will Diaz play on the left? Is Salah going to be used a lot? There's a lot of questions. Will Trent still be there by the time the season starts? I don't know. So there's a lot of things at Liverpool that are up in the air. And it might just take them a season to adapt to their new manager and just get used to life after Klopp.
Yeah, it could go really good or really bad. But I mean, honestly, not even that. It's just, will the level stay the same? I think it will get back to that after he kind of gets solidified. But will he start running, or will it just kind of be a kind of lull and then he gets going? We'll see.
I don't know. It's a very interesting question, and I really do appreciate that question because there's a lot of complexity to it. So good question there, Paul Salah. Okay, so let's talk about our drafts. Do you want to go first? And before you go through player by player, maybe talk about a little bit of your thought process of which players were most important when you put together that first draft.
Yeah, I mean, so the first draft that I have is really just, I haven't dove super deep on FPL this year, honestly. I mean, obviously the game just opened up. So, I mean, there's only a certain amount of thought process has gone into this. It's kind of just some players that I genuinely believe in and that I think will perform this year, essentially. So that, take it for what you want. But also, to piggyback off my point from last year, I think about not talking about last year when I'm going to talk about last year, that my favorite transfer, as everybody knows, listens to this podcast, was bringing in Kai Havertz last year, right before he went on his awesome tear through the season. And that just makes me want to play this game where I have fun and enjoy what I do with the decisions that I make, and make decisions in players that I believe in, because at the end of the day, that's what it's a game, guy. It's a game. Literally at the end point of it, however you want to play it is up to you.
But another point on top of that is this season, with how expensive players are, it's going to be very hard to reach a certain template level as of last season, where there were players, 5 or 6 players who were over 50% owned. I don't think we'll see that as much this year. So by trusting your gut and going a specific way because you believe in a player or the system they're in or the chances they're going to create, then I think that's a great way to play the game. And ultimately, that's what this is about, is finding the way you want to play the game and enjoying it by doing that.
Yeah, and so basically the main point is that I always want to hit when I pull, like, especially an attacker or midfielder, is this: are they good? Are they the focal point of their team, and are they going to be involved in as many actions as possible? To Luke's being naughty on the podcast, but it's fine.
I just want some chocolate, bruv.
He's trying to open this chocolate, and it's just so loud on his microphone. But anyways, the whole point when I'm looking at attackers, especially, is: are they the focal point of their attack, and are they going to be involved for most of the 90 minutes? Are they going to maximize those 90 minutes to produce a result for my team? And so that's basically the gist of how I made my decisions about this initial team. Obviously, I'll read more into preseason, how that goes, and like kind of transfers in and out up to the final days and all that stuff. But at this point, this is kind of just some initial thoughts that I have. Do you want me to go ahead and tell my team, or do you want to talk about your thought process and then we can
No,
break
no, no.
down?
You continue with what you're doing. Yeah.
Okay, we'll just run through it really fast. Goalkeepers, I realistically, they're going to change for me, but I had Neto and Areola
So Neto, just
for Bournemouth.
tidbit. I would be careful about him because he did get benched a couple of times last year, where Iriola was very frustrated with how he was. It seemed like he was conceding chances he shouldn't have been. Right. Don't know if that's going to continue into the season. He was their captain for certain stretches of the season as well, so it seems like he'll be on the pitch, but just be careful with that because I think there's a little bit of uncertainty in that area with Neto. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so we go to my back line where I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking about the point we made about how back lines are probably going to fade out this year and not be as...
Let me guess. You have Guardiola, Ben White.
I don't have Guardiola.
Ben White.
I have Ben White, Ian Matson, Lewis Dunk, Pedro Porro, and Al Norio.
Okay. Yeah. It's expensive.
It's expensive.
It's very expensive. There's not a 4 mil in there.
Well, I have a surprise for you later on that you
Another cheap player, maybe?
No, you'll see. And we'll go through my team. You'll figure out. Okay.
Yeah.
And next in my for the midfield, I have Smith Rowe because if he goes to Fulham, I think he's absolutely going to kill it there. And that seems to be where he's going right now.
And he's 5.5 or 6.
5.5
5.5. That's what I thought.
Which is a sleeper in my opinion.
Yeah. And you would think he would be locked in that starting 11, especially if they're paying upwards of 40 million pounds, which is rumored to be what it is.
So really my thought process with that is think about 2 years ago with Mitrovic and Andres Pereira, who was probably one of the most budgeted players of that year at 5 million, where you could sub him in and he would possibly get a result for you. I think Smith Rowe could be that, but a lot better. And Fulham are going to play an attacking brand of football. They've shown that in the Premier League. They're not afraid to go after other teams. And I don't know.
I do think Fulham will struggle a fair amount this season because they are losing João Palhinha. He was the anchor of that midfield defense. And without him, I think they're going to, it's going to be tough to, you can't replicate with one person what he does.
Yeah.
Because he is an elite DM. His ball playing ability, maybe not the best, but even sporadically, he'd come in with some really clutch goals at the right time for them.
Yeah.
But continue on with your midfield.
So next we have Mo Salah, Anthony Gordon, Son, and then Bowen.
So it's ESR, Son, Bowen,
Salah, and Gordon.
Okay, I like that midfield a lot. ESR is, you're rolling the dice a little bit at this point because we don't know if he's going to make that transfer. But if he does,
I mean, there's time up until the deadline to change it too.
And there's other 5.5s who could easily substitute. The price point. There's options like Amari Hutchinson is someone I really like with Ipswich.
Yeah,
that will be playing every match.
For history's record too, we're recording this on July 17th, and the window doesn't close until August 16th, so almost a month away. So there are a lot of variables that could change all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think these are players that could all produce. For my forwards, I have Kai Havertz, João Pedro, and Isak.
Okay, very interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
And that explains why you are able to have that midfield that you do, right? Along with Ben White at the back and then no 4 mil defenders. So it does make sense. I like the team a lot. How do you feel about not having Holland or Foden or really having any City presence overall?
I would prefer to not have a City player in my team the whole season.
Okay.
But that's just me.
Okay. Well, your team's going to suffer because of that big time.
I'm totally... So I'm only slightly kidding. But I don't know, just in the beginning of the season, I probably should work a City player in. But like I said, this is my first initial draft. And the City players have risen in price. Sorry, English.
Just like our Lord.
My brain is absolutely my brain is absolutely destroyed right now. So
that's okay. Here's a question for you though. Do you think it's easier to build a team now for game week 1 that does not include Holland and then have to cram him back in later on, or do you think it's easier to have him in the team for game week 1 and then drop him if you see fit?
No, it's absolutely easier to have him and drop him.
Yeah. But the good thing is, right? Say you build your team now and you have the mindset of, okay, I'm not going to make any transfers for, let's just say, 3 game weeks. That way, if you get to game week 4 and you're not happy with the way Holland is performing, with those 3 transfers, you should easily be able to pivot to where you can get him back or easily drop him out of the team. So
It's
that's
just it's
that's a
just,
perk.
it is such a crazy amount though to pay 15 million for one player.
Well, think about it. If you have Holland and then you have Salah, right? That's over a fourth of your budget right there, and that's 2 players.
Yeah, it's insane.
You still have 9 spots you need to fill. Wait,
Yeah, but
that's
honestly,
no,
like,
no, that's wrong. That's completely wrong. I'm sorry.
no, it's not 9. You have
No, it's
13.
you have 13 other slots. There's 15 total. My bad.
That's okay, Luke. I'll forgive you.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's kind of my team. Like I said, very early, very just off the cuff kind of team.
Do you feel like you would be missing Cole Palmer? Is that someone that you're worried about not having, or Foden?
I would prefer Nkuku over Cole Palmer this year.
Okay. Okay. I think a lot of people will follow that thought process as well.
He's just cheaper.
The price difference is vastly different. The only concern is injuries and where will Nkuku be playing ultimately on the pitch for Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know enough about their new coach to comment where he's going to play, how all the pieces are going to fit together. But to me, if Nkuku can be healthy, I think a lot of people don't realize how good he actually is.
Oh, he's a great player.
Like watching him in the Bundesliga, he was phenomenal.
His goals per 90 were incredible. His just XGI in general was incredible when he was on the pitch, and he was very healthy, to be honest. Like, he did have issues before the season he moved over to Chelsea, but before that, he was pretty fit the majority of the time.
Chelsea curse.
I don't know. It does seem like they're kind of cursed.
There's something going on there. But all right, Luke, let's roll out the red carpet for you. And let's have you walk the red carpet with your team. Show us what's going on.
There's a lot of teams, and I've just really been getting into it. Ever since what I did is I intentionally did not draft any teams until all the players were released. So today was the first day.
How many teams have you drafted today?
Just 3. No, 4. Just 4.
Not 4 different iterations.
Yeah, 4 different iterations. And what those iterations are, there's Holland and Salah. There's Holland without Salah. Salah without Holland. And then the team that I'm going to talk about, that I'm most excited about, is Watkins, Isak, and Havertz up top. That is a spicy, spicy team. But listen to this. So my strikers, I'll go in the reverse order that you did. I have Havertz, Isak, and Watkins, a excellent front 3. On top of that, I have Cole Palmer, Kudus, who I think is a sleeping giant with a new system under
I think we're looking
Lopetegui, which will be really interesting.
That's Bowen, Kudus. I think that's a big decision this year, honestly.
Yeah. So midfield of Palmer, Kudus, Saka, Gordon, and Foden. That's really solid midfield that I'd be extremely happy with having. But at the back, it gets a little bare, right? So my most expensive defender is 4.5 mil. I have 2 of those. But my defenders, I have 3 of those actually. I have Leif Davis with Ipswich. He had 2 goals and 18 assists, I believe. How many?
He's probably going to be very heavily on this year.
He had 2 goals and 18 assists in the championship last season. One of Ipswich's top-rated players, which obviously makes sense at that point. But so my defenders, Leif Davis at 4.5, Wout Faes at 4 mil with Leicester. It's kind of crazy he's at 4 mil. It kind of feels like a little bit of a steal, to be honest, because we know he's going to be starting. 8 Nori at 4.5, which blows my mind. Sorry, I'm trying not to cuss too much.
That's okay.
8 Nori at 4.5 with how attacking he was last season. I mean, at points he was playing as a winger.
Yeah.
And he returned multiple times with goals and assists throughout the season, and he's on set pieces sometimes. He's just a great player. At 4.5, it's extremely cheap to me. I don't necessarily love the run that Wolves are on to start out the season.
I mean, they play the best team first match of the season. So
Yeah, one of the best teams. And
the
then,
best team.
but if you look at the FDR for the next 8 game weeks, they are at the very bottom of that. So that's something to keep an eye on. Maybe that'll kind of scare me away for a little bit. But Wolves kind of felt a little fixture proof last season to me, where they play top teams and they would get really good results or be very competitive. So,
They really proved us wrong. Last year
Yeah.
we kind of on this almost same exact pod, or maybe the one right before the pod before the season started. I think we both predicted Wolves to be I think going down, right?
in that ballpark, we
Or
did not expect them to be.
I think
ending
I
up where they
predicted
were.
them to go down.
Yeah.
I'll stamp my name to it, and I was dead ass so wrong. So
Yeah, Gary O'Neill has done a great job there.
yeah,
And I wanted to applaud him for that because what Bournemouth did to him was not the best decision and,
No.
kind of disrespectful. So good for him for bouncing back and, being one of the better managers, getting the best out of his team when he went to Wolves. So to remind everyone, I have a back five of Leaf Davis, Wout Faes, 8 Nori, Ezri Konsa with Aston Villa at 4.5, and then Hardwood Bellis with Southampton, who's at 4 million. That one is kind of just a placeholder for the 4 million bracket.
mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly enough. I know that he's expected to be starting from what I've seen from the Southampton Reddit subreddit, but that could change. I don't want to rely on that, but it's just kind of a placeholder for now for that 4 million spot. And then my goalkeepers, for Van Bruggen and then Henderson with Crystal Palace. So I'm very, very excited by this team with the striker front of Havertz, Isak, and Watkins. I worry the only enabler that I see at the striker position that I really like as of now is João Pedro.
Locked in.
He's on pins. I really like his upside, but I don't know what to expect from Brighton.
What's the latest update on your boy Solly Marsh?
He's red flagged right now.
Yeah, saw that.
But Brighton did, and weirdly by chance, I was looking through their account the other day on Twitter, and they put out a video where he's back on the grass and training with the team. I don't know if he's in individual training
Hopefully
or training with the team.
Hopefully they don't rush him back because
Yeah, I hope
we don't
not.
want that.
But it'll be interesting. Does Adringa start over him? Matoma will be back for this season. He's going to be going through the preseason matches. So Matoma is someone we should keep an eye on. I don't think we should forget about him.
Yeah, we know what Matoma can do. It's just kind of like, what is the level of Brighton now? Without De Zerbi, where do they go from here?
This new manager they have is very forward thinking in how he plays. He's one of the youngest managers to come into the Premier League. Was part American for a while there, but I think he was just born in the U.S. and then moved to Germany. So he's really German national. But I do expect him to play a very brandishing version of football.
Oh, is he the one they got from St. Pauli?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So Brighton will be fun to watch again this season. I don't know exactly what to expect, so that kind of scares me away a little bit from an FPL perspective. But I am excited for their new manager, and hopefully, I wish them the best of luck because they've had a great rise as a club.
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
One of my thoughts here, right? I have this team that is striker front of Isak, Havertz, and Watkins. I'm really worried about not having Holland or Salah in this draft, but what that enables me to do with my budget is really exciting to me, especially amongst my midfielders. That back line is very bare, but I do really like it a lot. And I think as defenders have become kind of less of a priority in the bonus point system, I'm okay with placing less of a budgetary priority on my defenders. I don't know. Maybe you think differently, Paul?
I don't know. I think I do agree, though, like with the defenders, that like it just kind of feels like this year the money's going to shift elsewhere, Like, to me, I'm like, why invest in Trent for $7 million if you can just get a defender like Lewis Dunk at 4.5? And I mean, even if Trent does get the assist or the goal, and if they give up a goal, then you're not getting points, really. You're not getting those extra points that really would add up over the season. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what's the point in paying a premium if it doesn't pay off, really?
Right?
Like,
why not just go down to Van Dijk or Robertson?
Like, it has to make sense.
It does. what I would like to see for Liverpool, and I don't know exactly how Slot's going to be having the team playing, but I think it would be interesting if Trent Alexander-Arnold were to go to Real Madrid. If he makes that move, then Connor Bradley is the next up. They did price him adequately though. He's at 5 million. If he was at
Do they know?
4.5,
Do they know?
I don't know. Another thing that FPL seems to know is Ederson was priced at 5.5 million.
Ortega was too.
Ortega was priced at 5.5 million. It
Yeah,
seems like
he's going to the Saudi league.
they've got somewhat of an inside scoop that it's more than likely Ederson ends up there. It just seems like right now they're haggling over the price. And Man City are playing a little hard to get.
I thought I saw the number 30 million being thrown around.
The whichever Saudi club, and I could care less which club it is,
Yeah.
whichever whichever Saudi club it is that is trying to bid,
oil front it is.
whichever Saudi club is bidding for Ederson, came in at 30 million, and I think City want 60 or so. So they'll probably meet somewhere in the middle, and probably 50 is probably really what City want for him, which would be pretty crazy. I mean,
I wonder what the record fee for a goalkeeper is.
I don't know, but I know that Arsenal in the past has really struggled with that, and what I saw somewhere is that if they do sell ESR, he will probably be their highest selling player that they've had.
Insane.
Yeah, that kind of speaks to maybe holding on to players a little bit too long, probably letting them go earlier on. So another interesting question here that someone who could become very FPL relevant is Nketiah. Do you think Nketiah is going to be staying at Arsenal this season or going somewhere else?
I think he's going to move on. I think it's kind of a natural separation point,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of like, where he is never going to be the out and out starting 9 for Arsenal. Like it's just not going to happen. And he's had good moments for Arsenal whenever he's filled in for injuries for like somewhat of an extended period of time. You're like, yeah, I could see him starting for a club that's like Premier League mid-table-ish or a little maybe like relegation level.
Right.
But I just cannot see him like starting week in, week out for a club contending for the Premier League and Champions League. Like he just is not of that level to me.
Yeah, I could see Fulham being a really good fit for him with Muniz kind of coming into form. Maybe not now because it seems like they do have a starting.
They don't need
starting
him.
9, but other clubs, like if you look at, let's think like West Ham, I think West Ham would be a great fit. He's a completely different profile to Antonio, and he gives them a versatility that they don't have, to where someone who can play pretty intricately, but also have some pace in behind. So I would like that fit. But
yeah, by the way, look, I looked it up. Can you guess who the record fee is for the
for Arsenal?
No, who's the goalkeeping record for the highest transfer fee ever?
Just in European football?
In general, yes. It's from the last 10 years.
Oh, Kepa. Yeah, Kepa to Chelsea.
71 million.
Yeah, that's crazy.
71 million.
Apparently he'll be moving on. He might even be going to a Saudi club apparently after he comes back from his loan from Real. So
crazy.
Not a great bunch of business there from Chelsea, and that seems to be the trend. They're probably going to try to buck that trend. They've been investing heavily
in youth,
into young South American players, cutting out the middlemen, going straight there to themselves with their own representatives and bringing them straight over. So we'll see how that pans out for Chelsea. But there's a lot of excitement right now. FPL is back, and I think you and I are both equally excited to be going through different iterations of teams, keeping an eye on the transfer market to see how things develop over time, and also just watching these teams play in the preseason, because that's going to be really impactful for how we're drafting up these teams.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Luke. It's time to start gearing up, I guess, for another FPL season. So
it is, and there's plenty of other players that I am very excited about, but was not able to get to during this podcast. So
we'll have other podcasts.
We'll have many, not many more, but I think we'll probably have another pod out in about a week or so, maybe a week and a half. We're talking about where we're at our drafting process, our tinkering, and hopefully some preseason thoughts based upon how teams are playing for you all. So
yeah,
keep an eye out for that. But we're probably going to call it a close here. It's getting a little late. don't want to burn the midnight candle too late. So, any final thoughts for our listeners out there, Paul?
No, I think just kind of approach this time the next month or so with whatever you want to put in. Don't put too much in too early because, as like I've said, the FPL season doesn't start until August 16th. So we have a while to go. There's a lot of stuff that can happen in preseason. There's a lot of stuff that can happen in transfers. So I think having a set in stone team at this point in time is absolutely crazy. So be adaptable, prepare yourself, but also we never know what's going to happen. So
For this podcast, Paul is the angel and I'm the devil on your shoulder telling you full steam ahead, baby. FPL is back. We are diving into it and we are excited to get into the numbers, get into how teams are setting up, and really trying to figure out how to approach this limited budget we have with all these great assets that are so expensive, but we can't have them all. So trying to figure out the best way to approach that. But we are here to help you guide you guys through that process. And we'll be back very soon. But thank you all for making it all the way to this point in the podcast. And we'll be back with you all very soon.
all right, see everybody.
Thanks, guys.